in the middle of it, it's like a stone. It's got like a triangle at the top that just kind of developed out of me painting loads of weird stuff on the canvas. So I'm just kind of seeing what it's going to develop into. But I've been getting really into it, so hopefully it'll come out as something good.
Nice. Yeah. I think I told you I started writing a little bit more again.
Oh, have you?
And stuff like that. So, um, I was thinking. I don't know if you've seen it yet. But doing some of the older greatest hits of Teklordz. And putting that
Oh, that'd be amazing.
and put
That'd
that
be great.
and put that on the Mines Underground. And then later we do like a really good pulling the cosmic trigger with Teklordz. And then
That'd be brilliant.
because the whole point actually um, of pulling the cosmic trigger vapor tests like channel is to like build these like mind palaces to different people, and then Teklord's in there.
Yeah, yeah. He was kind of instrumental. Well, he was the first person I met on Mines, the very first person.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine posted a link on Facebook and said, "Oh, there's this new social media platform," and I had a look. It had a picture of an anonymous person with an anonymous mask, and I thought, and I was quite into Anonymous at that point. It was when they were sort of, not everybody knew about them, but they were sort of coming out a bit.
Yeah.
And I was sort of watching them a bit, thinking, are they just dodgy? Are they,
Yeah.
CIA run or something? I didn't know what it was. I was just curious to know what it was all about. So that's what attracted me to it. I thought I'll go on there. And I met Tech and we just started testing out. We had this really crappy Minds chat thing where you could call people on, a bit like WhatsApp now, but it was just audio.
Oh, okay.
And we
Yeah.
decided, it was right at the very beginning. We were testing it out. That's how I met him. He said, "Well, let's test this out, this feature." And I remember we thought it was brilliant because it worked straight away. And then it just, then it was really crap. And you know what it's like,
Oh yeah,
people kept
yeah,
coding and changing it and doing
yeah.
different things. And
You know what's funny is that recently I got the first after hours show, and it's me, Ghost Spiders, and Tech Lords. Um,
what, the
and
very first Minds panel show ever?
one of the first Mind Panel show, but this is like after hours when I was just recording. This is not stuff that we.
Oh yeah, yeah.
This
I
is not.
remember. I remember when you did the after hours. Yeah.
And that's when
So it was like the first
I didn't
one.
stream it or I never like released it or whatever, but it's just me and Ghost Spiders and Tech Lords. Um, but anyways, we were talking about Messenger coming, like like that was like the latest news. I think like within that week or whatever,
Yeah.
Messenger was supposed to launch. Yeah, that's kind of funny. Yeah, that was
Oh,
like
maybe you can mix some of that in, some of the after hours chat into your final
yeah.
piece. I don't know.
Well, I think I tagged you, but recently there's one, and it's from the end of that after hours show where I was like, oh, do you guys want to like say any one last things? And I'm like, oh, you start Teklordz, and then like Teklordz just thanked us, and then like both me and like Ghost Spiders like say something to like Teklordz. And it was like cool, but anyways, it's a good one. So I made it already into a mix, and like later we'll make the full show and like however long it is. Um,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, didn't Tech host some of the Minds panel shows? I can't actually remember now. My
Yeah.
brain's like a sieve these days. He did,
Uh,
didn't he? I'm sure.
there's like 3 of them on his channel. So he did the only Infinite Imaginarium that is not hosted by me or that is not on the Infinite Imaginarium YouTube channel. Tech Lords. I think you were there. Melissa,
Oh yeah.
and Seek Gnostic was there.
Oh right. I can't remember that. I can't. Have you got a
Yeah,
recording of it?
yeah, I know where it's at. And then I haven't listened to it in a long time, but I'm gonna go and listen to it, and then like take some stuff out of there and see how see
Dig it
what.
out. You might be able to get some stuff
Yeah, and then like
and mix it into something.
post some of that stuff on the Minds Underground, because like that's what's the Minds Underground is supposed to be, and like
Yeah, it's
later
all like the original Minds people from the
later,
beginning.
we'll get a lot of that stuff and like curate it and make the good cuts on there, but then like make it even better, and that's for the movie The Minds Underground, which
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
yeah, that's the idea so far.
That'd be so cool. But yeah, it's brilliant how you've got access to all these things, that you've kept all these things over the years, because it makes me think what we might be able to create out of it in the future.
Yeah,
Like when you've got things, it's like when I go through some of my paperwork, you probably do this as well, things that you've written over the years. And like sometimes I'm having like a bit of a clear out and I find things and I end up just not doing what I'm supposed to be doing because I get distracted reading all this stuff that I've written over the years. And I find things that I've completely forgotten about, and then I can connect them up with other things and make new things out of them. It's really weird. I'll find little sketches or little things
yeah.
I've written, and then it re-inspires me to do new artwork or new writing.
You know what's funny?
Things that I've forgotten about.
It's funny because so the first after hours like talk is basically what me and Minds Gaming still do. It's like half of it is about like content, like different content on like Minds and like different things like that, and then the other half is like internet freedom,
Yeah.
and then just about like that. I don't even know if we mentioned crypto in that first one. We mentioned open source and it has to be decentralized, but I don't think we mentioned crypto. Oh no, actually I do, because when he thanked me and Ghost Spiders, I thanked him for introducing me to Crypto Hustle. I said, oh, maybe there's a show in there or something. That was before I did the Crypto Hustle show. So it was like kind of funny. That was like almost like pre-crypto, especially
Yeah.
pre-crypto to Gov, and like it was Teklordz who like programmed that synchronicity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a way above the curve on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Crypto Hustle is Rocky, his
Yeah,
friend Rocky, and he
yeah,
was going to C-Tech at the sort of the hospice place where he was at the end.
yeah.
And yeah, but at one point, I don't know whether it was the drugs, because I spoke to Tech every day on Skype. He rang me, but he was quite weird. And at one point, he was normal for the best part. I don't know if he went a bit weird because he was taking so much morphine, but he said something really weird to me that freaked me out a bit. I can't remember how it came about, but he said something like, I own you. He came up with this really weird thing. And I also, when I was chatting to him, I think it was during the same conversation, the same day that I was talking to him, I said, oh, is it possible for me to like speak to your daughter? Oh, this is how it came about. I said this first. I said, could I speak to your daughter, or could Rocky or your daughter sort of message me if anything happens, because what I was basically saying was, and I had to try and be tactful when I was saying it, but I was thinking, well, potentially something could happen to Tech before the day that he chooses to do his euthanasia. I was thinking that in my head, and I was going, there's nobody that I'm in contact with that knows me that could tell me and say, oh, actually something's happened, or he's gone downhill, or something's happened. And he became really weird at that point. He started going, no, I don't want anyone to know about you, and that was when he said, I own you, and he started coming up with all this weird stuff. Anyway, I just let it go, and I thought, well, maybe he's a bit weird on the drugs, or it's affecting him a bit because he's not very well. And then about a week after that, his daughter was there, and I was Skyping him, and he was introducing me to his daughter. He's going, oh, this is Nikki, and he sort of put and I was chatting to her on Skype, and she's going, "Oh, thanks for looking after my dad." And so all I can think is it must have just been that day he was being a bit weird, or the drugs were affecting him, or I don't know.
Yeah.
But it freaked me out a bit. I mean, I let it go because I thought, well, he's dying and he's not very well, and he's on like loads of drugs every day.
Yeah.
But
You know,
it was quite strange.
Maybe it's tied to this like weird thought I had, you know, earlier, and it's tied into like the vapor test and all this kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
it's like, you know, we know Teklordz, right?
Yeah.
And that's like different than like, you know, like Satori D in a lot of ways is different than Daniel, but in a lot of ways it's like more me too in a lot of ways, and that
Yeah.
like people, I forgot how. What's the first time I heard a phrase, but it's something about like recognizing the other in the sense where you could just talk to them and don't have to like explain yourself. And it reminded me of this one time. It was just me and Teklordz, and I may have it recorded or I may not, but it was just like me and Teklordz hanging out. And he said he had this dream, and he's like this really vivid dream of like California falling off the coast and all this kind of stuff. And then he was like really worried. Yeah. He was like really worried about me, and then I'm like, oh, that's crazy. And then like we just like go into like detail about his dream, and I go about like, you know, asking about like different aspects, and like, you know, trying to suss out like, is it really a premonition dream or is like something else? And then like I talk about like my premonition dream, and like we get into like this like whole crazy talk about like our dreams and like deja vu and premonitions and about like time and space and mysticism, and like, you know, like the whole way we never have to like stop and explain ourselves or like do whatever, like it just like flows because like
just flows really naturally.
Yeah.
Well, he said something else a bit weird to me. He said, "Oh, when I've passed over," he said, "I'm going to communicate with you telepathically," and he said, "I want you to write this book." He said, "I want you to write this book," and he said the title of the book is "The Great Cosmic Lie." That's the title of the book. But then he said something really freaky. He said, "But you do realise," he said, "it's going to be quite dangerous for you." I said, "What do you mean?" And he went, "Well, the information in the book that you're going to write is really dangerous because they don't want the information to be released to the public, to people to know about it." And I'm thinking, well, maybe I just won't fucking write the book then. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just thought, he basically said, well, I'm going to write that. He said, "I want you to write this book." And then in the next breath said, "Oh, but you know, it could endanger your life." I'm thinking, oh, great. Basically what he was saying was they would, you know, they wouldn't want this information getting out.
Yeah.
So,
well,
I kind of
thought, so like maybe in order for us not to get in trouble, we'll just call it, instead of the cosmic light, the cosmic giggle, and then like we'll make everything a joke, and then like
because it's interesting you say that, because I was talking to my friend the other day about how comedians like Bill Hicks, for example, I don't know if Russell Brand falls into this category. I'm never sure about Brand because I just think he's a bit too up himself at times. I just think he's still too a bit much about the celebrity. In fact, he actually admits that he's a narcissist and he likes all the fame and he likes all the stuff. But what I'm saying is comedians that use humour to reveal very deep stuff about the world, and obviously they're completely awake and aware, you know, like, I don't know, George Carlin or Bill Hicks, they're the only two examples I can really think of. And it's like, if you do it with humour, if the powers that be, you know, people who are high up in those echelons of, you know, society that don't want the general public knowing stuff, because obviously it will empower them ultimately, to be free and not be controlled or programmed anymore. If they do it in humour, they're kind of safe, aren't they? Because the authorities will just get, you know, all the powers that be will just say, well, people won't read into it. They'll just think it's a joke. A bit like things that come out in Hollywood films. Nobody would believe that some of these things would actually come to pass because they just go, oh no, it's just a film. And in the same way, they just go, oh, it's just a joke, it's just humour.
Yeah. You know, there's these conversations that I have with Dream Eater where we just talk about.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Dream Eater.
We talk about like I still have them. I need to go through the.
You still chat to him?
No, I haven't chatted to him in years. But there's these series of recordings I have of me and him talking, and me and him talking about dreams. Like we talk about psychedelics, and he goes into his DMT stories, and they're like crazy, you know. And then he's like, "Oh, too bad that you don't live in Australia. I would send you DMT." And then we just like have funny like high psychedelic stories, and like you know we just like trade them back and forth. And then like later, like towards the end of the conversations, we start talking about like dreams. And then like later we talk about another just about dreams themselves and like our theories about it. But that first one of us like talking about dreams is like crazier than the DMT ones. And like we get into like these weird little like stuff about dreams, and like it was just crazy. Yeah.
Do you know what? I haven't had any weird, as I call it, epic dreams for a while.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
the one that I remember the most, the most bizarre, epic kind of dream I ever had. I've told you about this dream before, and I think I wrote about it in McVoigt's dream group on Mind. I think I shared it in there.
I think I posted it recently on Imaginarium.
What, the dream group?
No, the Victorian Dream one?
No, it's not the Victorian. There's that one. This is a different one.
The dream group, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the dream group. But there's this dream that I had. I don't know if I told you. You'll know when I start telling you about it. But it was in 1999. It was just after my son had passed away. Mm-hmm. And the house I was living in at the time belonged to my mum. I was renting it off her. She had this other property, and I remember I had like these French doors, like going out onto the garden. It was the summer and the doors were open. And I fell asleep on the sofa and then woke up. Well, I thought I'd woken up and I was awake. And I woke up and I felt this presence of something in the room. And I looked across and there was like this little person, looked like a child, but I could tell that it wasn't a child, if that makes sense. It's really weird. And it had like curly blonde hair, and it looked a bit like sort of like a cherub, you know, like those angels that are like small with sort of curly hair. Do you know what I mean? It's like a weird little. Yeah. So it looked like a child, but I remember in the dream thinking it's not a child. I don't know what it was. And it took me out into the garden, but it was kind of communicating with me telepathically, so it wasn't speaking. So I kind of knew to go out into the garden. And then I looked across and there was another one, and they were like twins. There was two of them and they looked identical. And they were pointing to my fence in the garden. And I got this like garden chair in my garden. I stood on it. And when I looked over the fence, I was kind of like looking down at all these stars. So it's like I'd gone up into the sky and I was above the stars and I was looking down. And then all of a sudden, all these like slabs of stone started growing out of the side of the fence, and they had like what looked like hieroglyphic symbols on them, and loads of them were all like, it's a bit like that scene, I don't know if you've seen it in Raiders of the Lost Ark, when he's walking up to that gold thing, and oh no, it's not in, I don't think it's in Raiders. I think it's in one of the other ones. He's stepping, he's got to get through to something, and he's stepping on all these stones, and they've got like hieroglyphic symbols on them. Mm-hmm. And he was stepping on them, and if he steps on the wrong one, they crack. But anyway, they were growing out like that, and they had these symbols on them. And then all of a sudden, all these people, like hundreds of people, like they were running away from some sort of tidal wave, and they were all screaming. They were all clambering onto these stones. And as they were clambering onto them, like they were trying to escape something, all the stones were cracking and the people were just falling down into space, which was really disturbing and weird. But I've never really known what that dream means. I've never forgotten it.
Yeah, that's a crazy one.
It was really crazy, but surely that's got to mean something. But to this day, I've always thought over the years, one day I'll know what the meaning is. And to this day, I still don't know. But I wish I'd been able to memorize the symbols on the stones so I could have written them down and found out what they were, but I couldn't remember them. But they look like hieroglyphic symbols. You know, like Egyptian writing.
Yeah, yeah. You know,
But,
well, a lot, most of the times on a good amount of mushrooms and mescaline, I see, you know, like hieroglyphs, but you know, more like Mayan or Aztec. And then I remember one time on a good amount, and I wrote a poem. It's called Mescaline City Blues because, like, there's like this really strong sensation of like this like ancient like town square and like these stones that had like all these like weird hieroglyph like writing on them and stuff like that.
yeah.
And it was like this courtyard, and it was crazy. Yeah. Maybe that's the place that got destroyed.
Yeah. I mean, the weird thing about the dream is that I woke up and I thought I'd woken up for real. I don't know if you've had dreams like that. So it was a fully lucid dream. I'd fallen asleep on the sofa.
Yeah.
For real. Then I woke up in my lounge and actually had the thought process, oh, I must have fallen asleep on the sofa. Then I saw this being standing next to me. But the whole time I didn't think it was a dream. I thought it was real.
Yeah.
And then I woke up again and realised it, and expected to see the being again, and then they didn't. And then I suddenly realised that I was actually awake at that point.
Yeah.
And I just thought, fucking hell, that was so weird. But the weird thing was, I wasn't scared or freaked out by it. Like, when I told people about that dream, they were like, God, when you woke up and you realised you were awake, weren't you freaked out that you were going to see them again? And I said, no, I didn't have any feeling of fear or there was no weird, you know, like some dreams, they freak you out a bit and you wake up and you're like, for a few minutes, you're a bit freaked out by it. I didn't have that at all.
Yeah.
But it was really real. And, you know, even to the point that I had these chairs in my garden, you know, and I got one of the chairs to put by the fence to climb on so I could look over the fence. You know, I really did have the chairs in my garden. So it was almost like more like a sort of an astral projection thing where I came out of my body and I was actually in my garden doing all this stuff for real, but astrally rather than in real life. That's what I think happened. Yeah. Are you still there? I've had a few astral experiences. I was living in Bristol years ago. All these things happened around the same sort of time, sort of within a few years of each other. I think I was 23. I remember coming home from work being really like knackered. And quite often I've had a lot of sleep paralysis and things like that happen when I've been really exhausted. It seems to happen when...
Okay. Maybe we're just going to probably try to come back in.
Yeah, this experience, I went to bed and I remember I had the sleep paralysis. And then suddenly I could see all this, like, it looked like purple smoke in my room. And I was thinking, this is really weird. What's going on? And then I remember thinking, God, I feel really, I could see all this weird pattern really close to my face. And I suddenly realised that I was staring at my ceiling, but I was right I was close up to it, so I suddenly discovered I'd floated out of my body. And I think I could have gone with it. I could have thought, right, I'm going to go and explore now, but I've got freaked out. And I remember going back into my body at high speed, and it was like I could hear it. It was almost like a gunshot wound, not wound, a gunshot right by my ear, really loud as I went back into the body. And I remember I was like drenched in sweat, and it was really freaky. Obviously, at some point, I thought, no, I don't want to do this. Instead of going back into my body really gently, I went back in really fast, which is not recommended. It was not good. And I've never done it since. I've never wanted to go on any astral journeys or anything like that since. Because I always think you could
what?
Go on.
No, what were you
I was going to say, you could always end up in some of the lower levels of the fourth dimension, which isn't that great. There's a lot of negativity there and negative entities and things. I've often thought, I'm not sure I want to go exploring all of that.
Yeah, for sure. This was like a long time ago, but I was reading Carlos Castaneda, and then also doing shrooms too. But anyways, I had this one really weird dream, and it almost directly. It was like a month later, I read about it in the Carlos Castaneda book, and Don Juan talks about it, and he talks about like this 2D.
So you had an experience and then read about it in his book after you'd had the experience.
Yeah, and he was like this 2D. He explains it as like this 2D realm, and he explains it as like these entities that like are kind of basically leeches or whatever. And anyways, but so like it was so weird because the experience like later when I wake up, I'm like, oh, that was like a weird like Atari dimension, like Atari graphics.
Computer.
It was like that, or like the old school what's that one called? The one
Spectrum or something.
No, the one you like where they go into the video game.
Tron,
yeah, like Tron.
Yeah, so oh my god, yeah. So that is kind of completely 2D. It's like quite basic. So they were basically leeches because they're so basic. They've got to leech energy off of more evolved energies, higher frequencies. Yeah, because there's lots of different levels to the fourth dimension, and obviously if you astrally project, the chances are you're going to go into the lower levels. You're going to explore those. And I remember having that thought process, thinking I could just carry on with this, because I'd already come out of my body, because I was looking at my ceiling. I'd literally gone right up to the ceiling. It took me a few minutes to realise what had happened. And because the sleep paralysis thing used to happen a lot to me when I was a kid, and I hated it. Because you just can't move any part of your body from the neck down.
It could be uncomfortable, for sure.
But it feels quite scary, because I think a lot of negative entities can appear at that point and try and suck your energy out, which isn't good.
I read this one book. What's it called? It's called The Alien Agenda, and it's by Jim Mars or whatever. But anyways, he goes into this one section about jinn. And so it basically, like, there's this section where he goes about, like, ancient myths.
That's supposed to be quite evil, aren't they? The jinn.
Ancient myths that could, like, basically be explained by, like, alien entities or whatever. But anyways, so he goes into, like, this deep lore of the jinn. And basically he says that, like, these, like, plasma beings, like, contact people via sleep paralysis, and they're like the jinn, but they're like these like weird entities, and it's like consistent, and that's basically what Dream Eater the name is like referencing. He's actually referencing a Japanese. His is a Japanese like entity that goes and um, eats people's dreams.
Yeah, yeah,
um, and there's like good and bad versions of these. Um, you know, that's an interesting thing, and then like that's the whole thing about like dream catchers are is supposed to like take away the bad dreams, like the bad you know
yeah.
vibes
I've
or.
got, funny enough, I've got a dream catcher in my room that my mum had it and she gave it to Lizzie.
Uh-huh.
And Lizzie was like, "Oh, I've got one, Mum.
I
Do you
know,
want this one?"
I
So I've
know,
got it hanging in my room.
I know. Halloween passed, but there's this good scary movie called Dreamcatcher.
I haven't heard of that.
It's a pretty crazy one. Me and my friend Rosie liked that one. We saw it all high one time and it freaked us out.
Yeah.
Because it's basically about that. Is like entities coming into your dream. Uh, yeah,
Well, it's
it's
funny
a good
because I
one.
know this guy called Tony Sayers, and he's always talking about entities and entity attachments and how they attach onto people. And he said, the majority of people have these entity attachments, which is in a sense like a type of possession. And he was saying that, with alcohol, I mean, this is the thing. I drink alcohol and I sometimes come up with the most brilliant ideas when I'm drunk,
Mm-hmm.
which is quite freaky for artwork, writing, anything.
Mm-hmm.
And lots of writers will tell you that when they're drunk, they come up with all sorts of things. They drink and they write stuff. They can write better when they're drunk, basically,
Yeah.
or under the influence of something. But he was saying what happens is with people who, particularly, he was saying particularly people who have a lower level of awareness. So I don't mean this in an ego way, but people not like you and me, but people who just sort of go about their daily life on that sort of treadmill. They don't really think about anything deeply. He said quite often what happens is when those people get drunk, these low entities from the fourth dimension who want to experience things in the 3D, a bit like the leeches you were telling me about in the 2D. They want to experience having sex, eating food. They might want to go out and commit horrible physical crimes, like abusing people or raping people or even killing people. And he said what happens is when people drink, it opens up those kind of portals. The chakras are like portals where these entities can latch on and in a sense, possess people. And I was thinking, well, that sounds like it could be true to me, because when you think about people when they get drunk and how they do things that they'd never normally do
Mm-hmm.
if they were sober. And quite often people will do things when they're drunk and they can't remember anything about it the next day. They'll just. And he was also saying that what happens is, and this goes into what you were saying about Dream Eater and the whole dream thing, is that they hijack people's dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way they can siphon off energy, because they're such generate their own energy, because they're such a low frequency. They have to siphon it off other people. And quite often children will
Okay.
have nightmares because children are an easy target, apparently, because they can play on the fear of a child to some extent easier than an adult, because adults grow up
You
and they
know.
become more aware. And
Okay. So, this is interesting because, like, um, the language that we use to like talk about this is also like interesting because um like this is something that like me and Dream Eater actually talked about. Like that's why we were so interested in talking to about like each other's dreams, and this is what I also did with Teklordz. It's like if you like have all these different experiences, there's just different quality of dreams. There's like deja vu dreams. There's like weird vision dreams. Like there's like regular like psychological dreams, you know, and always
Yeah.
have like different qualities to them. And then like there's these vivid dreams, and then there's these characters in these vivid dreams that are, we have this deep like intuition that they're not part of your mind, like they're an entity
Yeah.
in themselves. And I remember one time I was like, this is early on when I was really doing, you know, lucid dreaming and doing some totec stuff, and then, you know, like I was like controlling stuff in my dream and like doing different things. And then there was this one time where I was like dismissive of this like dream character. I'm like, oh, you're just part of my mind. I'm gonna change the
Yeah.
scene, and I change the scene, and the dream character is like, oh, you think I'm a part of your mind, and they give me like this like weird little gleam in their eye, and I'm like, holy shit, like this is the same like someone that's part of
It's
my
like
mind.
what you've described there is almost like
Like they passed the turning test, like they're sentient.
being aware of like the 3D as being like the, as people call it, the matrix.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like you having that conscious thought in your dream is like you've decided that, not decided, but you've acknowledged that it's just the matrix, and you can say, no, actually, I don't want to be part of that. It's like a form of breaking out of the matrix in your dream.
Well, okay, so I like this. For lack of a better word, this is one of my visions. And what I mean by vision is like this really vivid dream that seems to like play this packet of information that is beyond my domain. Because like I had this dream where I was on this Egyptian ship of like the dead, and we were rowing to the afterworld, and there was like some fucking jackal man like in charge of this ship,
Oh my God,
and
that's
like
full on.
and then like the water's like fucking neon, and I'm like terrified when I
So
meet
in this, did you
with
feel
and okay.
terror in the
Oh
dream?
yeah, the terror like I never felt before, and I like look in his eye, and the only thing I think of is like fuck this, I'm gonna control alt delete, and I jump off the ship, and the minute that I hit the water, there's just like this energy, and then I like come back to my body. But you know the thing, there's this other nature that I know for my own self. This physical sensation when I come back to my body, like my body's tingling, like if my body, you know, when your leg falls asleep, like you put like,
Yeah, yeah.
it feels like that. So like it felt like the sensation of like my blood wasn't like flowing through my body.
Oh
So
my
like
gosh, yeah.
yeah, that was like, I was like, holy shit, how do I find myself here? Like I gotta get out of here. But like that, I like I was like 20, I don't know, like 22, or I don't know, I was young. But I didn't read any like Egyptian mythology or anything like that. I was like, how do, and then I read it afterwards to try to like make sense of it, and I'm like, dude, I had like the classic Egyptian like death experience, I guess, and I'm like,
It's really weird you say that, because
where do I
I was in,
access? Yeah, where do I access that information? That's like something beyond my knowledge. How?
that's what I thought about my dream. The weird thing is I
Yeah.
had all my most weird experiences in my 20s as well.
Hmm.
I was 23 when I had that
You know,
dream that I
yeah.
just told you about,
Well,
which was
because it's like
Egyptian
20, it's
hieroglyphic.
25, right? 25 when your mind finally like sets, like between like, I think it's like 17 to like 25, like your
Yeah, I
brain.
wonder what the significance of that is, that in your, maybe there's some significance of being in your 20s. I don't know, but I was in my 20s when I had all those weird
Honestly,
experiences with,
honestly, and this is just like something I'm coming up with like right now, but intuitively, I think your peak consciousness is at like 23. I think like
yeah,
I've had all my weird experiences at like 23, like
yeah,
the
me too.
cosmic trigger stuff, and like I've heard it from all like Douglas Rushkoff, this other guy that wrote about like almost everybody has like these similar things that like weird things that if they like peel back and like went down that rabbit hole early on, like it like programs the rest of their lives, like that what Teklordz is saying
Yeah,
is like program
definitely.
synchronicity. Yeah, it's interesting.
But yeah, and the other thing that I had, not in my 20s, when I was a kid, it was from the ages of 3 to 7 years old, this happened. So it's quite a long time in a kid's life.
Yeah.
Um, it, I had this recurring dream where I would have like the sleep paralysis and I could hear these like weird voices talking to me in this weird language. And the only way I
Yeah.
can describe it is they were like, it was like a loud whisper,
Mhm.
if you can sort of conceive of that. It was like a whisper, but really loud.
Yeah.
It sounds really weird.
No,
Um,
I've had that in sleep paralysis. That's why I have a poem called Whispers of Reality, and
oh my God,
it's
yeah.
about like hearing like whispers during sleep paralysis.
So I'd have this loud whisper of these beings talking to me in this weird, I don't know if it was Sumerian
Oh
language or what it
yeah,
was. It just
something.
sounded like another language. And then what they would do is they would
Hey,
completely,
this ties in, but I recently watched it's Stargate Origins, and it's like kind of not recent, but recenter than the original movie. But in it, they meet the gods, right? And then they the one professor. He's the one that studies the the language of the pharaohs, which is like this like really like dialect of Egyptian that like only the pharaohs knew, and like the
yeah.
clergy, and that's how he like communicated with like the gods when they went through the Stargate.
Well, this language, I don't know what it was, but it was another language. I didn't understand it. But what this recurring dream that I had for like from the ages of 3 till 7,
Mm-hmm.
7 years old, they would basically take over my body a bit like a marionette doll so they could
Oh.
control me. And
Mm-hmm.
they'd make me go downstairs and then they'd get me to turn, they'd be speaking to me in this language and I somehow understood it, but
Oh
I
shit.
couldn't translate it, but I could understand what the commands were.
Yeah, like
So
intuitively.
they'd say, right, in their language, they say, right, turn the TV on, but not in English, in this language they were speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like on an old TV, you get all that fuzzy stuff,
Yeah.
like sort of like when the TV's finished, when there's no
Mm-hmm.
programs on there anymore. And they'd communicate with me through this TV. And then they would make me go into this kind of cross position on the floor in my lounge. And then I could hear them talking to each other. There was like loads of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like working on me. They were doing something to my body. I don't
Yeah.
know what they were doing. It was really weird. Anyway,
Yeah.
I told Tech about this dream years ago, and
Okay.
he said, I don't know if this is true or not, but this is what he said. He said that was like them taking me onto a ship. He said they're like a extraterrestrial beings. And he said they're like doctors. And he said they were like changing your DNA, doing some different stuff. So you'd have this awareness and you'd be able to do all the you'd be able to do the work that you're supposed to do in your adult life. This was Tech's theory. I don't know if I agree with it or not. This is just what he said. And he said what they had to do, because you were a kid, they had to make their ship look like the lounge, look like your living room, so you wouldn't be scared
Mm-hmm.
being on their ship. I mean, I found it a bit weird. I didn't.
How old were you when this happened?
I was 3 years old when I first started having the dreams, and it went
Okay.
on till I was 7, and then it just stopped after
Yeah.
the age of 7.
That's yeah. You know, I
And
met.
what's weird, that film Poltergeist.
Okay,
I
yeah.
Honestly, I'd
It's like
never
that.
seen that film. When she turns the TV on and they're talking to her through the TV,
Uh huh.
that's literally what happened to me. And I'd never, obviously, years later, I saw the film and I was just like, "Fucking hell, that's like what happened to me when
Yeah.
I was a kid."
You know. You know. Okay. This is a fucking weird thought, but I had it in a dream, and it's one of those things like what we're talking about, and it's like I don't even know how this thought. It was like a whisper, I guess, and like I don't know, and I just made sense of it, and like later I frame it as okay, hyperspace, right? So
Yeah,
that static that you're getting that message from is hyperspace, right? And
yeah,
before you would get it in dreams, and you would get it, on like the bandwidth that is not being frequenced by televisions and all this like weird white noise and all this hyperspace
Yeah, yeah,
the dream time, right? But what I was thinking is that with fucking blockchain technology and creating the metaverse, we're like cementing fucking hyperspace, which is supposed to be like in flux, is supposed to be like white noise, but like we're like cementing that space, like we're like colonizing hyperspace, and I'm like, is this a good
yeah,
idea? And like, what are the repercussions of it? And just like it was like too much for like my mind to like compute. It's just like like no, this is like not. This is a dangerous thought. Like this is so like scary because it might be true, and if it is true, like we have no idea like what we're doing. And like I feel
yeah.
like that all the time, but like this one like was like scarier than other things because it's like
But
this maybe time is not supposed to be like tied down by binary ones and zeros, and it's gonna be like this weird well, we're already seeing like chaos like rippling like you know, like it's
yeah,
weird. It's weird what's happening.
but this is the thing. I mean, I had this dream repeatedly
Mm-hmm.
every night, pretty much until I was 7 years old. The same thing over and over again happened. The exact same thing. The process of me having the sleep paralysis. In fact, my mum said she found me at the bottom of the stairs a couple of times. So you know, from my parents' point of view, I used to go sleepwalking,
Mm-hmm.
and a couple of times my parents found me at the bottom of the stairs because I'd fallen down the stairs during this sleepwalking process. And I remember telling my parents about the dream, and they were just obviously really dismissive of it, and they were just like, "Oh no, you're just having a dream."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, still telling them, you know, but I keep having this dream, and I must have told them right up until the age of 7, but they obviously never thought anything of it. They just thought I was a weird kid,
Yeah.
having this dream.
You know,
But
I think because me and Tech, like I said, we had that one talk about dreams, and like we get into it too about like basically, he said something about like aliens, and I'm like, I understand, kind of what you're talking about because I've had sleep paralysis, and like I'm more comfortable saying entities, uh,
yeah,
but there's like this one talk that like Terrence McKenna has, and he says, he talks about like one of the biggest like satellites like at that time. It was like in that movie Contact, and it's like
oh yeah,
trying to listen for aliens in space. And he says, the only thing is like, what about if we're talking about like something that's more advanced than us? If they could travel through space, like it's like kind of like you would think they would have like a different way of like communicating and or even like doing. It's like what if they like figured out a way that like they're just like transporting their consciousness. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, yeah,
they're transporting their consciousness, and like we're like via interrupting it via psychedelics and dreams, and like
yeah,
and interrupting their bandwidth of them like doing events like training and events like knowledge by like project like well you're kind of saying like astral projecting themselves onto the planet instead of like physically traveling there and learning what they need to learn while they're here,
yeah,
and like constructing mind palaces to like interrogate young children, I guess.
yeah. But
Yeah.
this is what Tech was saying. I mean, I took it on board, but I don't know if I agree with it or if I
Yeah, yeah.
believe what he's saying.
I
But
I
he was saying that he was saying, but there's certain people on the planet that have to do certain things, or they have a certain path,
uh-huh.
and in order to get through the matrix, the
Mhm.
to survive in it, to be able to function, they have to sort of alter the DNA a little bit, so they have more of an awareness and more of an ability to project their energies and do all these things that you're describing.
Yeah, and
that normal humans can't do. And he said he was saying that's what they were doing. He said that's why it went on for quite a few years. He said it had to be, it's like a process of changing the DNA, altering the DNA of the human who has to do these certain things and get through it without having the same sort of, because he said otherwise, he said normal humans would be too fearful to progress with the work or do whatever they've got to do. They'd be too scared to do it. And it kind of removes the fear element. This is what Tech was saying to me, which I thought was quite interesting, but I don't know if I agree with it. I don't know if it's
yeah,
true or not.
you know, this is why I always reference Cosmic Giggle and the Cosmic Trigger, because like the way Robert Anton Wilson frames it and even like talks about it is that when it's called entering the chapel of paralysis, and
Yeah,
that when you're dealing, this is what I talk about when you're dealing with the Dreamtime hyperspace, and when you want to collapse it into, it's an alien, it's an entity, it's angels, it's whatever artificial intelligence in this what do you call it, singularity or whatever. This is
yeah,
whatever your ideology is, like totally like frames it. So you either become mad because it fucks with your collapsing reality into a certain philosophy or a certain
yeah,
ideology, and then that's why you go mad, because you're like, oh no, I believe in God, I believe in this and that, and then like the alien, or I believe in aliens, I believe this is exactly alien, and then somehow it turns into like a fucking joke of an elf leaving pancakes at your front door, and you're just like, okay, if they're so advanced, why are they like doing silly like pranks like this? Like, is it just like my mind? And then like you wrap your head in it. So then like or you become agnostic and you said, oh, maybe. And so like he I even heard this recently with Douglas Rushkoff. It was like an ode to Robert Anton Wilson. He was talking to this other guy
yeah,
about Robert Anton Wilson. He said, I heard later, because he did an early documentary with Robert Anton Wilson, and then Robert Anton Wilson said he had a critique, and he said, I don't think Doug understood what I was saying, and Doug said like it was like an editing thing, like he couldn't get like the full thing in there, and he understands what Robert was saying. He says that his philosophy is that he doesn't is not that he doesn't believe in anything, is that he's always it's more like I don't have any beliefs, but I have my suspicions. Meaning, like I
yeah,
have like my best guess is that it's some kind of transdimensional being, or like for me, my best guess is like these are strip it of all like ideology. It's just like weird data packets that are out there in hyperspace, the Dreamtime, and that we as we expand our awareness, our consciousness, we're able to like process more of that if we want to, like if you want to do it. And sometimes like automatically it comes out of us, like when we're just like
yeah.
stream of consciousness flowing, and then like you say something and you're like, holy shit, blah blah blah, or you're going about your day and you hear something reflect to you that was like said to you in that dream that day before. Everybody, well, me and when you're in the flow of things, right? um,
Yeah, yeah,
or versus when you're not in the flow and you this is the interesting about flow, and I guess I got just like out of it, where you're forcing it, where you're like, okay, I want something to happen, and you're like trying to make it
and
happen,
it doesn't work.
and it doesn't work, and you get disappointed, and the more you get disappointed, the more it's all noise, and then the more kind of like numb you get, and then like the further you get away from it.
But that's it's interesting you say that, because that was what we were talking about with the whole, when we were talking with Kev, and
Mm-hmm.
we were trying to, there was that whole thing about the infinite Imaginarium. It was kind of becoming too regimented, like let's have this meet. I'm not saying that any of that stuff was a bad thing, that we shouldn't have had those organized meetings or done certain things, but it was getting to the point where it was becoming more like a business, you know, and that's kind of not what it's all about. It's about being in the flow, being in the energy. Like you and I can go off and we do our thing, you know, we come in and out of it when we're feeling naturally inclined to do it. We've learned over the years that trying to force it doesn't work. It has to be this natural thing, this natural flow of energy. If you try and force anything it in life, it doesn't work. It's like you have to go along the path of least resistance, of not, in the sense that you're not trying to control it in any way. You
Yeah.
can't control it. It's like an ebb and flow of energy. Um,
Well, and also
it
too,
works better that way.
um, this is I love what Maggie Free to Be Me posted about tech and that whole phrase of program synchronicity, and I think what we should do, we done everything we have done, but I think what I've come to as some realization of, um, I'm always like going through like, does this matter? Like, what does this mean? And especially to the passing of Teklordz, and the answer is yeah, it does matter, and that we should, and just we don't have to like keep on having shows or whatever, but do what we already have and make it like better, because like
Yeah,
I want us to like constantly keep on reflecting on that work for
but we
like
can build on the
for
things that
yeah,
we've already
and like
created.
yeah, like the stuff that we already created and what we were talking about earlier, but making it better, making it into now it's not like a podcast, it's a show, but like leading to like a movie, to like saying like,
Yeah,
this is what we did here. This is this is our like message in a bottle into hyperspace. This is what we care about, and
yeah.
like I my uncle passed away a couple months ago, and my dad wanted to
Oh,
do the Day of the Dead for him, and basically the concept is that a person is still alive in the afterlife as long as you remember them. And so
yeah.
you tell stories about that person, and that
I love that.
their spirit lives. And so we ate like his favorite, and then like you're supposed to leave offerings or their favorite food or the things that they liked in the physical world, so like
Yeah.
they could
Me,
celebrate
me and
with you.
my kids love that
Yeah,
movie. I mean, I'm not
yeah,
normally an advocate of Disney, but they love that movie
yeah,
Coco
yeah. And
because it's all about that.
so
They both, you know,
so in the same sense, and this is where we could wrap it up, because I gotta I'm gonna go to dinner right now, pretty soon. But anyways, what I was saying is that in the same way, that's what the vapor test and a cosmic trigger is these like we're tech lords. The concept of tech lords, as long as like minds and Imaginariums think he lives forever, infinitely in the
yeah,
Imaginarium. You know what I mean? And
yeah. That's the
uh,
beauty of it.
yeah, and that like that's why we curate better, of our like main messages and things that we're always like talking about, or what we could leave behind. Similar to what Maggie did, but like in video form, like how I do it, and then
Yeah, and the film.
we could do that, yeah. And the film is basically, we're highlighting each core member, and then like they have their basic segment leading up to like the mosaic of the Minds Underground, that we all met on Minds, and even though we don't like really like keep directly in touch, that it's like what we experienced like branched on to like Gus Spiders doing blockchain, us doing still Imaginarium stuff,
Yeah,
minds even getting deep into crypto, because when we all met, we all battled for the direction of where minds was going to go.
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff, and that whatever happens, it doesn't really matter. But like what we did and what we talked about is, like I said, kind of what Teklordz was talking about is like the cosmic lie. Like we have so many discussions that I have tons of audio of like us talking about like crazy stuff. And it's like, oh shit,
So I'd
other
love
people.
to just have a whole day. I'd love you to send me all these little clips
Yeah, yeah.
because I've forgotten a lot of the stuff, but I'd love it if you could share some of those things with me because I could just sit at home
Yeah, I'll
listening to
make.
all those
I can make a.
clips.
I can make a playlist. I'm gonna upload some of
Because
them
if
to
you do that,
YouTube.
it'll probably inspire me to write some stuff, to
Yeah,
start writing this book that Tech wants me to write.
that sounds good.
Maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's the whole point of us having this conversation
Yeah,
now,
start
is that
writing
if
up.
you send me some
You
of
know
these
what was
clips, I can
interesting?
just trawl
Yeah,
through them.
what you
I love it.
what you were saying about writing the book, it was interesting because I got this like flash. I think in the morning, maybe it was in my dream. I don't even know, but I had this like flash of like taking, and maybe this is how it started. We'll take Maggie Free to Be Me's blog, and there's
Yeah.
there's like just quotes, and we'll take
I
each
haven't seen it yet. I'm gonna
we'll
have to go and
we'll
have a look at
we'll
it.
take the quotes, and then we'll like write something about it, and then we could even like mix that into the video, but and then we'll make a whole blog, and it'd be like
That'd be brilliant. Let's do that.
infinite Imaginarium Teklordz, and then we'll put the playlist there, and then it's like your guide to like Teklordz and his part in the Imaginarium, and then like
Yeah.
that's like gonna be there, as long as the Imaginarium and this, as long as we keep it infinite, it'll be
Yeah, I
there.
just think all these things
And
combined just
what I
will
want to
help us
do, and
create the movie.
which I'm glad I've always kept up on, is the YouTube. I'm gonna put most of the good stuff on YouTube because I think like then that will be like could live on forever, in a
Yeah,
sense. Yeah,
that's brilliant.
yeah.
That'd be brilliant. And yeah, when you get a chance, send me some of these
I
clips,
sent
some of these
you
old school stuff.
my latest video, which I used audio of an old clip for you, in the
Yeah,
chat.
send it to me later so I
Yeah,
can listen to it.
look at mine's chat. I sent you something, and
Oh,
then
okay.
but later too, as I start posting them up, I'll send it to you.
Oh, that'd be great. Because that'll help